this as well. Okay, so welcome to your class of academic task 1 line graph. Everything that you need to know about writing task 1 in line graph. This is our lecture. This is what the lecture is about. So what to expect on this? You're expected to write, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to change this. You're expected to write 150 words only, not 250. This is wrong. So only 150 words. Okay, so 150 words, 150. Okay, so you're expected to write 150 words and you must complete the task within 20 minutes. So that is your writing task 1. So if you guys have attended my writing task 1 major, then you probably have an idea of what to expect already. For those of you who have not attended the lecture or who haven't watched the video, you may send me a PM directly after this class is over so that I can send you the link of your writing task 1 major. So this gives us an impression of what is task 1 in comparison to what is task 2 and how many statistical report am I going to expect. So this is just one of the 8 types of writing task 1 that we're going to conduct a presentation with. So it is equally important to understand this because your writing task 1 line graph format can be applied even though the image that you see is not a line graph. And you will learn more about that later. So your task will last for 20 minutes. Again, for the sake of newcomers, for those of you who just began the lectures today, who have not attended and watched my previous videos, I just want to exploit on this topic that your writing subtest will last for 1 hour exactly. And you will be devoting 40 minutes of your time. Why? You will know later tomorrow because tomorrow will be our major lecture in writing task 2, discuss both views in particular. So I will explain why there is this discrepancy between the time that we must spend. Why 40 minutes for task 2 and why only 20 minutes for task 1? Well, the thing is, to put things into perspective, writing task 1 is only 20 minutes. We are prescribed to spend 20 minutes for this because it's technically shorter compared to task 2. If you compare task 2, you must provide a statistical discussion. Sorry, you must compose an essay with 250 words. So in comparison, task 1 only wants you to write 150. So 250 for task 2 versus 150 for task 1. Obviously, you will be spending more time with something that would technically require you to spend more time doing something. So that is task 2. So statistical report, that is what we're going to expect. So what is this statistical report? So statistical report is different from the concept of just plain writing, okay? It's different from the idea of creative writing. When it comes to creative writing, those are your essays. When it comes to creative writing, those are the written composition that we see on the different posts, online media, social media blogs. That's it. But when it comes to statistical report, you have to sound statistical. There are some mathematical computations here. There are some comparisons of figures and data and information that you must allow yourself to present in a very academic manner. And that is what you must expect with a task like this. Okay, so now let me just remove my drawings here. So what to avoid? Okay, in this type of test, essentially any emotional language or language that may seem to suggest an opinion or a bias or any information outside the data given is to be avoided completely. Okay, again, any emotional language. So simply put, your task must be cold. It should be statistically hard. It should be unemotional and complete of facts. It should also be free of the slightest hint of value judgment or human feeling of any kind. So Most of you would probably say, sir, that would make my task sound boring. It will make my task look dull. That's the idea. The more boring your task is, the more dull it is, the better statistical discussion you are making. So if it sounds boring, it's okay. It's not going to hurt anyone. It's not going to hurt your case. Okay? So that's it. So that is what you must avoid for a task like this. So what are the parts of a statistical report? So we have three, okay? It depends on where are you going to take the exams, whether it is British Council or IDP, whether you are going to take the examinations in the Philippines or abroad. We follow the basic three parts of a statistical report. And that is your introduction, your general overview, and the specific details. Sir, I am not seeing a conclusion. Is it correct that my statistical report does not have a conclusion? Again, let me highlight on that. Well, conclusion has been changed into something that is what we now call the general overview. That is a part of your statistical report that takes the role of the conclusion. So meaning your task looks something like this: your introduction, and then the conclusion, and then that's where you're going to attack the specific details. Yes, your writing task 1 is different from your writing task 2, because your writing task 2, the conclusion is in the end, and the conclusion is denoted by the words in conclusion, to conclude, in general, generally, to summarize, in summary. That's how you can introduce the conclusion, the word conclusion in your task. But in your general overview, there can only be one word that you can use. And this word is overall. Okay, that's the only term, that is the only word that you can use to denote that, hey, examiner, I am done with my introduction. I'm already at my general overview, because I am using the prescribed word for an overview, which is overall. Okay, overall. I put an extra V. Okay, overall. That's just one word and there's a comma. Later, we will be coming up with samples of general overview so that you can have an idea like, oh, Sir Kevin was right. The general overview functions as the conclusion of my statistical report, but the difference is that the general overview is found after the introduction. And now, this is it, the specific details, or also known as specifics. Now, listen to me carefully. No one submits their writing task with 3 paragraphs. It doesn't mean that we have 3 parts, that your entire composition will only have 3 paragraphs. Let me repeat myself once again, because academic, you guys are very hard-headed. I need to repeat this 4 to 5 times for it to be inculcated in your mind. I am repeating myself once again, all right? It doesn't mean that we have 3 parts of your writing task 1, that your number of paragraphs will only be 3, because your specific details will be composed of a minimum of 2 paragraphs and a maximum of 3 paragraphs. That makes it a total of a minimum of 4 paragraphs, because you have your introductory paragraph, you have your general overview paragraph, you have the first paragraph for the first specific detail, and you have the second paragraph for the second specific detail. Now, depending on the situation, you can still another 1 paragraph that is still a continuation of your specific detail. And you do not put a conclusion anymore. Once again, let me repeat myself again, academic, because I know how difficult this is for you. I know how hard-headed many people are, especially academic. I'm really fed up with you guys. But let me repeat myself again. All right, so we have the introduction, we have the general overview, then we have the specifics, also known as your specific details. Sir, I am seeing 3 parts. Does it mean that the number of paragraphs will also be 3? No, that's when you are wrong, because your specific detail cannot be 1 paragraph. Your specific detail is a minimum of 2 and a maximum of 3. So since you already have an introduction and you have a general overview already, you put those 2 to 3 paragraphs together, your task should be a minimum of 4 and a maximum of 5 paragraphs. Academic, do I need to repeat myself again? Okay, I hope that this is very clear to you already. Okay, again, if you are having tough time, you can watch the replay later. This is again me telling the repetition of the idea that even though your task is composed of 3 parts, it doesn't mean that it only contains 3 paragraphs. It should be a minimum of 4 and a maximum of 5, because your specific detail will be composed of 2 to 3 paragraphs. Okay, I hope we are very clear as the crystal clear of the water during the spring season. So let me continue. Assessment examiners will be assessing your performance based once again with your task accomplishment. So how are you going to accomplish your task? Well, you have to follow the direction. The direction clearly states that for you to complete the task, you have to write a minimum of 150 words. So 150 words is our threshold. 150 words is your minimum number of words that you must accomplish. So what I'm trying to say here is, even though it's the minimum, you have to exceed beyond 150 words. So we are somewhat looking at between the numbers 170 and 220. So I am not suggesting that you exceed beyond 220 for the reason that you still have your task too. And since you only have 20 minutes left for the last part of your writing subtest, it will not be very ideal for candidates like us to spend a lot of time writing task 1, especially if you only have to compose 180 words or so. So you must also present not only blabber or any unimportant information here, you must present a clear, accurate, and relevant description of the information. So when it comes to clarity and accuracy, I am going to discuss everything about that later, okay? No hints of opinion. So for example, you saw a line graph that compares the use of different fruit in a household. And you said, oh, mango, that's my favorite. I wonder why it's the lowest. It should be much higher. That's your opinion. Avoid bringing your own personal perspective of the matter. This is just your presentation of what you see. So what you see, you do not think why it happened in the first place. You do not think about what will be the outcome of this. You just have to present the numbers. You just have to crunch them, and you have to statistically compare them whenever they are relevant. What about coherence and cohesion? Again, organization of your writing. I am going to repeat myself here many times. Organization is what we refer to as the paragraphing. I have mentioned the parts, I have mentioned the roles of the parts, and how many paragraphs are we going to provide in our entire task. Now, we are not going to present all the information. Sir, what do you mean? I thought we're going to compare relevant ideas. Yes, that's the idea. We do not present all the information, only the relevant ones, because there will be tons of details here. There will be a lot of numbers involved in your discussion. So if you're going to put everything, it will be not a report. It will not be statistical anymore. This is just you converting the numbers into words and sentences, which is not statistically relevant. So you will be the one to pick which numbers will be the ones I will include because I think they are relevant to my report so that it would sound much more academic and much more statistical in nature. That is your coherence. Now, when it comes to cohesion, again, sometimes I get fed up because of how many people still don't understand the importance of cohesion. Cohesion has something to do with the connectivity among the information. So let me draw the part. So for example, I have here the introduction. Okay, I'm going to write it in red. And then I have the general overview. And then I'm going to write the first paragraph of the body, which is basically much longer. And then I'm going to write the last paragraph of the body. This is how my essay will look like. Okay, so take a look at that. This is the length of your introduction. This is just the length. And then this is your general overview, basically much shorter. And then this is your first paragraph of the specific details. And then this is your second paragraph of the specific details. Basically, this is how you compose your presentation. This is how you do your report. Now, when it comes to cohesion, you also have to make sure that there is a connection. Okay, there should be a connection between those two ideas. So what I mean by this is that this, okay, this introduction must be connected to your general overview. Your general overview will be connected to your first paragraph of the specific detail. And then another connecting device will be used for your last paragraph. Again, if it requires another paragraph, it depends on the situation. But what I'm trying to say is you must make sure that cohesion is followed. And by following cohesion, it means that you are connecting them. So a simple word as using overall that symbolizes that this part of your written composition is already in the general overview helps a lot. Okay. Now, if I am pertaining to, look, take a look at this. This is the purple one. Okay. This is the purple one. Obviously, I put a different coloration for the purple and the green one for one reason, because I want to show that they are different. They share different numbers. They share different information. So if this is different from this, okay, this purple is different from green, this paragraph is different from the last paragraph, then I can use the words on the other hand. I can use the word however. Okay, what about if they are somewhat similar? I'm talking about two lines that pertains to the use of oil, for example. So let's say we will be changing this into a blue one, okay, because they are somewhat similar, okay? So I'm changing this into a blue one. So what happens now is that you can use the words additionally or in addition to that, okay, or moreover or furthermore. So there are a variety of ways in which you can connect not only the paragraph level of your composition, but also the sentence structure. Okay, so you can also use compound words. You can use your connecting devices. So coherence is the logical structure of your report, but cohesion is the connectivity of those ideas, whether they are related to one another. So how can you show cohesion much better? Well, you use a variety of connecting devices. That's it. All right. So that is how coherence and cohesion are assessed by the examiner. Organization, the relevance of the information, and the connectivity between those ideas, whether they are interlocked. Okay, so you have to use different connectors. Okay, now vocabulary and lexical resource later in the in the last portion of my discussion, I will be showing you some of the words that we use for writing task one and what are the synonyms for them. So when it comes to words, you will not be having any problems when it comes to how you can provide a wide range of words and a variety of sentence structure, because later I will be showing you how to construct sentences and how to write the words properly. So when it comes to that, this will not be any problem on your part. All you have to do is just to listen. All you need to do is to memorize and use the items that I'm going to show you in your own report. So that is clearly the idea when it comes to vocabulary. We avoid repetition. And when it comes to lexical resource, we showcase the appropriateness of the words that you're using without repeating the words too often. So you are showing your resourcefulness because you, as a candidate, can come up with a variety of words that are statistically accurate and academically relevant. So that is your vocabulary and lexical resource. Now, the last part is the most common error that many of my students, even in the past and until today, are committing, have committed, and probably will still be committed. So construction of sentences. So in terms of constructing sentences, so we have various sentence types. We have the simple, compound, complex sentences. We also have the type of sentence where we can change the active of the voice of the verb into a passive one. Okay? And at the same time, we can also use the sentence structures variation to provide to the examiner as an insight that, hey, examiner, I'm not only good in grammar, but I'm also good in vocabulary, because according to our vocabulary, variety of sentence construction gives us an edge. Now, do you observe proper spelling? Yung iba ko kopyahin na lang, oh. Diba? Oh, what else? Punctuation use. So what types of punctuation are we going to use? We're going to use comma. We will be using period. Sometimes we will be using apostrophes. We will be using apostrophes for the sake of property, for the sake of ownership. Okay? So we don't use apostrophes here to indicate a contraction. So for example, cannot, and then you will shorten cannot into can't. You will shorten do not with don't. Those are wrong because your writing task one is still, okay, a formal written report. And when it comes to formality, no contractions, no shortcuts are allowed. So when do we use your apostrophes? Only for ownership. For example, Kevin's cup, or student apostrophe S phone, student's phone. Ibig sabihin, kanya yung phone. All right? Or child apostrophe S, child's game. For example, dog apostrophe S, dog's toy. Because it pertains to the ownership and property. Okay? So that is how we use your apostrophes, only for that occasion. What about subject-verb agreement? Okay, most of the time, we will be using the past tense of the verb, but oftentimes we will also be using the present and the future. So in those events, are you using the proper tenses of the verb accurately? Are you using the prepositions properly? So those are the questions examiners ask on their checklist as they read through your report. If you are going to commit errors in their checklist, then it will accumulate every error that you commit, most especially if you are going to take the pen and paper-based test in the IELTS. Most of the problems occur because of carelessness. Okay, so if you want to improve in grammar and accuracy, you observe carefulness in your writing. That is my only tip. And if you still don't know how to do grammar properly, attend my grammar lectures. Okay, the line graph. Okay, so welcome everyone. I'm going to tell you what type of line graph are you going to expect. So this is a typical question in the exam. So this is what you will normally see. So here it is. I'm going to use my laser pointer right here. So this is what we call the question, all right? So this is what we call the task description. Until the summarize the information, comparisons relevant, even write at least 1/5 words, that is still part of your task description. Okay, so what is a line graph? And why are we going to expect a line graph to come out on my test? Because, line graph is most useful when we are displaying data that changes continuously over time. Okay, so when it comes to displaying data sets, there is no better way to compare the information. And if you want to show changes over time other than line graph, well, you can use a pie chart, you can use a bar graph, or even a table for that. Later, I will show you that we will see different types of line graph approach, but they are not in the line graph format. So look at this, okay? So this one, you have different timelines. All right, from 6 a.m. until 6 the following day. Okay, so we're trying to compare. We're trying to compare this. We're trying to compare the radio and television audiences in the UK from the month of December until December of 1992. So this is TV. This one, I'm going to draw it using a red ink. This is your TV. And then I will be using green for the radio. So this is your radio line. So that you will not be confused as to where the lines are. Okay, so radio is green and TV will be your color red here. Okay, now, just by looking at this, okay, I'm not going to do anything crazy. I'm just going to look at this. Can I see changes right away? Yes. Like, take a look at this. TV, all right? It changes from 0%, 6 in the morning. It increased here about 45% by 8. And then it fell sharply. It dropped down drastically to, I don't know, 2% by starting at 2 a.m. until 6 the following day. That's it. I already saw the changes. Okay, what about radio? Okay, in radio, it began at about 5. It peaked about 29%. And then it fell down. Let's take a look at this. The falling trend is happening nonstop. There's no line. There's no flat line. It goes like this throughout. The line is falling. Okay? So we obviously saw just by looking at it without statistical comparisons or without using rocket science. I mean, you already saw that the lines are changing. When did the changes occur? When did those comparisons, when did those drastic shifts from different percentages occur? When? We already know because we have the time here, time of the day and time of the night. You have the noon, you have the midnight. And that is where line graphs are most useful. They are very useful if we're trying to compare a data that moves continuously over time. That is your line graph. And if there will be 2 to 3 lines, then that's it. You don't just have to give the information how those lines alone changed, but you also have to compare the lines relevant to the other variables. Again, that's what makes line graph a bit tough as compared to the other types of writing tasks out there. So let me move on to my next slide now. All right. As I've mentioned previously, even though you do not see a line graph, it does not necessarily mean that you will not be using a line graph approach, because line graph is very useful even though you will be seeing a pie chart like the one in front of us right now. It is also useful if we see a bar graph, the one that we see in front of us right now, and even table. They are very useful. Sir, why do you think that these ones that you are flashing right now, the ones that are in front of us right now, the pie chart here, the bar graph on the next slide, and on the slide after that, the table, why do you think they require the line graph approach? Again, when it comes to the terms we refer to as the line graph approach because they are line graphs that are hiding. Again, they are pie charts, but you will not be using the pie chart approach. They are bar graphs, they are table, but you will not be using the bar graph and table approach. You will use the line graph approach. Why? Take a look at my explanation right here. All right. There are two distinct timelines that are meant to compare data sets. The line graph approach is still necessary. There is a previous time. There is another time which means to compare the two. Like, take a look at this. You have the 1980 figure. And on the right side, you have the 1980 figure. So what approach are we going to use? Simply put, line graph. Because we're trying to compare two data sets. We're trying to compare distinct timelines. We're trying to compare the figure of 1980, whether there were some changes in the sources of energy in the USA after a decade. From 1980, what changes have we observed approaching 1990? Are there any? Then that is what you're going to use, the line graph approach. Again, let us have a look at my other slide. You will still be using a line graph approach here. Why are you going to use the line graph approach? Well, it's easy because we have three different teams. Okay, we have team A, which is the orange one. You have team B, which is the blue one, and you have team C, the purple one. Now, they're not just being compared as teams, because if you're just comparing them per team, then you will be using the bar graph, the pie chart, or even the table approach. But what are we seeing here? We are seeing an expression of time. An expression of time. You have the 2002, you have 2003, you have 2004, you have 2005. A data set that is continuously moving from 1 year onto the next until the end of the study period. If there are differences in time, whether the time is a year, whether the time is hours or months or weeks or even days or even decades, even millennium, then we will be using the line graph approach. Sir, what about this? Why did you tell us that even this one, we will be using the line graph approach? Well, as you can see, we have time. Where? Okay, let me draw this to you once again. We have time. Where? 6 a.m. until 10 p.m. The data, which is the first data, which is the number of passengers, are being compared from 6 to 10. And then the next data your average price in ticket. All right. Your average price in ticket is being compared from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's the idea. All right. There is a comparison not only between the average number of passengers, between the average dollar price per ticket, but they are being compared strategically with a difference of time. So we have the 6 a.m. figure compared to the 8 a.m., 10, 12, 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. The data is moving over time. And that is the reason why the line graph approach is necessary for this. Okay. Now, I would like to ask questions among you, my students. Do you have any questions or concerns about the line graph approach or line graph introduction? Jao, Aljay, Emil, Jonalyn, Chrisbert, Sheena, do you have any questions or concerns whatsoever? Okay, no one's asking any questions so far, so I hope that you guys understood all the references I made perfectly. So let us continue. Okay, cutting points. All right, as you can see here, I have a very big saber. Okay, so this is what we're going to use for cutting points. So what are cutting points? So cutting points are main points that usually groups or categorizes data for easier presentation. They are determined by analyzing trends and grouping similarly decreasing or increasing figures. So when we apply cutting points, okay, let us go back to this slide. All right. When I say grouping together of data, this one, I'm going to use my thick marker. Okay, this one is a data on its own. All right, from 6, it increased to about 5 and then fell to about, I don't know, 3%. And then there is a set of data that is continuous. Okay, meaning from this point on until this point, it is a data on its own. That is my cutting point. And then starting this, there is another trend, okay, which is this one. So which is we call decreasing pattern. So this one is increasing, this one is decreasing. This one, it just overcame the hump and then it returned to its original figure. This one, it sustained itself. This one, it's flat, okay? What about this? This one, radio, that's a data on its own. It increased from 6 to 8. And then starting at 8 a.m. in the morning, the trend is now continuous. It declined steadily starting at that time. So that is your trend. So when it comes to cutting points, the main idea for this is that you are going to differentiate where the lines are going to be separated from one another. So if there's a movement on the line, where am I going to cut it? Which data am I going to include together? Okay, so which among them will be included in my first sentence or in my first paragraph? So that is what we refer to as the cutting point. So later, we will see the cutting points in action, okay? Okay, now, we shall see about this. So this one, we're going to determine cutting points as well. Okay, we're going to use cutting points right here. So this is flat for January, February, March. The data is somehow stagnant. You know, it remains as is for the first 3 months. Now, There is now a change starting at the month of April. There is an increasing, a very sharp increase can be observed right here. And it ended when? Until the month of September. Okay, so again, you have to determine where the cutting points are. Then from the month of September, I'm going to change the color here. It declined. All right, it declined to October. And even though there is a stagnation for a month, the trend still continued in December. So I'm going to put them all together. Now, if we're going to take a look carefully at what we see, all right, in your amount of fertilizer used, this one, the red one, okay? So we have here the trend from January, there is an increase already. Okay, the movement of the line is towards the increasing pattern. And then it fell to June with 0. Take a look at that, with 0. There's no more numbers here, okay? And then it revived itself. It went up once again, and then it almost equaled its data here. From this increase, it almost equaled the data here. That's what I'm trying to say. So we have to remove, we have to idealize what are the cutting points, where are they? How can I best simplify my discussion? Okay, so that is the proper use of your cutting points. We underline for, we understand. Okay, now we are going to make an introduction. So again, this is the topic that I would like to come up with an introduction with. This is the task description. Okay, we refer to this. Okay, we refer to this one as the task description. We refer to this as your task description. So everything that is part of your task description needs to be paraphrased. When it comes to paraphrasing, we do not want to repeat the words from my introduction. So if this is your task description, you have to come up with at least 4 to 6 new words. So you will not just be using the same words that you will see here. Okay, you will not just be using the word the graph or shows, all right, or produced, fruit produced. So you will be coming up with other terms. So the first 3 words that we see, the graph below shows. So we will be paraphrasing and we will be coming up with a legitimate introduction for this type of question. So hear me out on this one. So I saw that the first 2 words in my task, okay, in my task description are the words the graph. What are the words that I can use to change the graph? I can use the word the presentation. I can use the word the illustration, or I can also use the word the line chart. It's up to you. You want to use presentation? Use it. You want to use illustration? Do your thing. You want to use the line chart? Feel free to do that. Okay? What I'm trying to say is that since we see the words line graph, the graph in your task description, we see the words the graph in your task description, we will be choosing between the presentation, the illustration, or the line chart among the words that I can use to replace the graph. Sir, what if the situation is opposite? I see the words the line chart. Am I now allowed to use the graph? Yes. So what you need to avoid is to use the similar word from the first 2 words of your task description as your introduction. That's the one thing that you have to avoid. Okay? So this is the graph. You will change it into the presentation, the illustration, the line chart. Okay, we're clear with this. Now, what about below. All right. Am I going to come up with a synonym for the word below? Are you going to look and see what synonyms are we going to replace the word below or above or beneath or under? No, there will be no paraphrase of the word below, because the reason why the word below exists in the task description, let me clarify this to you. The graph below. Take a look at my annotation. Take a look at my pointer. The graph below. The word below exists here. Okay, the word below exists here. I repeat, the word below exists here because technically, if you look below this statement, you will see a graph. But in your case, there will be no graphs whatsoever because you are going to make a presentation using words. You will not draw a line graph here. That's why the word below must be completely eliminated. Again, you see a big red X mark. It means that you avoid using this word. You do not think about this word anymore. You forget that this word exists. I explained the reason why. There is technically no graph that will be seen below your introduction because your entire composition will be made up of words. So there is no need for this word. So avoid this word. Do not change it into synonyms. Okay? So we're done with the graph. The first two words, we can replace it to the presentation, the illustration, the line chart. Avoid the word below. And what about the word shows? I see that the word shows is the one used by the examiner on the task description. Definitely, as what Sir Kevin said, I will not be using that same word anymore since examiners will be categorizing it as repetitive because I cannot come up with my own version. So what are the sample words that you can replace the word shows? Presents data about, illustrates information on, provides comparison of. You can use gives data on trees planted in Brazil, gives information on the weight changes of Julie, gives comparison about the basketball teams A, B, and C. Or you can simply use the word compares information on. That's actually good. But if you see the word shows in your task description, you can no longer use this word anymore. You cannot use the word shows anymore. Rather, you'll be using each of the words and phrases that you are seeing right here for a much better vocabulary and lexical resource. Okay, so we're done. You can use the illustration presents data about. The presentation illustrates information on. The line graph or the line chart provides comparison of. The presentation gives data about. So you can choose whatever words you want. All we need to avoid is repeating the words from the task description. You have to come up with your own. Okay, guys, we're clear here. Can I expect that the words posted here on the screen will be the ones that you will use in your composition? Can I count on you on this, people? Excuse me, Tin, can you hear me, Tin? Tin, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Tin, I want you to change your name using the proper form. ACAD underscore your complete name and the last 3 digits of your tracking card. Okay?
Okay, sir.
We have to follow directions, please. Next time, guys, I don't want to repeat myself here. When you enter my classroom, you always make sure that your name has already been changed because I don't want to kick people in my class, okay? All right, so let me continue. I hope everyone gets the idea why we're trying to change the words. Again, because of vocabulary and lexical resource, examiners want to see whether as a candidate, you can use the proper terms. You can use the proper words. You can use the lexical resource appropriately. Okay? All right. It's okay, Chris Bert. If you cannot check your last 3 digits of your tracking card, that's fine. All right. So again, let me continue. We have the first 3 words. We can change it with, here are the first 3 words of your subject. We remove the word below, and then we use these phrases to complete it. Now, your introduction must consist, all right? Your introduction must contain 2 sentences. Again, 2 sentences. All right. The first sentence should answer what the graph is about and who the parties are involved. Again, the first sentence, what the graph is about. Look at the title. Look at the main idea. What is the graph trying to compare? Is it trying to compare the income of young people in university? Is it trying to compare the amount of fruit harvested? And who are the parties involved? Well, when you say who, it doesn't have to be people. Who can also mean animals, right? The population of rabbits and leopard in Africa. That's it. So that is the presentation compares the population growth between the rabbits and leopard. And then that is your first sentence. And your sentence number two will answer the question where and when. Where did the study happen? So you say the study occurred in Africa. Or when? The study happened in 1997. The study was conducted from January to December of 2013. That will be your second sentence. So there should always be one sentence that talks about what the graph is about and who the parties are involved. Who are the parties involved? And then your second sentence would answer the question, where did the study occur and when did it happen? All right. Now, list down your variables. We have asked the examiners about their preference when it comes to the variables. If your task contains everything, if your task contains your what, who, where, and when, and in your introduction, you forgot the term, you forgot to include the element of where, you will not get 7 anymore. If your introduction does not contain the inclusive dates of your task, you will not get 7 anymore. Again, we are here because we want to make sure that we can secure a grade of 7 in writing in congruence with writing task 2. Task 1 is as important as task 2. Even though task 1 only carries 33% of your overall writing grade, it is still important because if it will get a low remark, then your writing task 2 should obviously compensate on this. So what is the graph about? Look at the title, look at the task description. Who are the parties involved? You don't just have to look at the task description. You look where? You look at the task itself. You look at the drawing. You look at the line graph. Radio, television, that is my who. Audiences from 4 years old and above, that is my who. Where? In the UK. When? October to December. I will use last quarter of the year, 1992, from 6 a.m. until the following day for a 24-hour period. That is how I'm going to come up with a 2 sentences introduction for that particular type of task description. Again, sample. Let us have a look at my example right here. All right. So let us have a look at my example right here. So here, the graph below shows the weight in tons of fruit produced by a farm during each month in 2013, and also the amount of fertilizer used. So what is this about? This, your task here, your what is a line graph that compares the fruit production. Okay, so fruit production, the amount of fruit, that is your first who. Okay, the fruit, the weight of fruit is your first variable, who. And then the second who is your fertilizer. So both of the weight of fruit and the fertilizer are my who, and I should put it in my introduction. Now, when did the study occur? It happened in 2013. It happened in 2013, but let us not forget that not only in 2013, but it also measured the monthly period of the production and the use of fertilizer. So if I'm going to use my presentation here, take a look at this. I will be using my, I will denote this in color blue. So the presentation compares the information between the monthly production of, again, here is my first variable, okay, fruit in 2013, and the amount of fertilizer used in the same year. The figures are measured using tons. So the reason why I have come up with this as my second sentence, take a look at this. Why I used the figures are measured using tons, okay, as my second sentence is because if I'm going to separate the monthly production of fruit and fertilizer, 2013, I've put everything. Well, what's my second sentence going to be? Well, that is the idea. You can use the figures are shown. Okay, you can use the figures are shown. You can use the figures are measured. You can use the figures are compared. Sir, can I replace the words? Can I replace the word figure? Well, technically, you can use other means of presenting information. So if you really don't want to use the word figure, here is another version that I can come up with. So the presentation shows or compares information on the fruit production and fertilizer utilized by a farm measured using tons. And my second sentence is going to be like this. The study was conducted from the month of January until December of 2013. This will be my other version. Okay. Now, before I continue with two of my versions in my introduction right here, do you guys have any questions so far? Anyone? Zhao, do you have a question? All right. What about you, Emil? Do you have a question,
As of
Emil?
now, sir, wala naman po.
Answer.
All right. What about you, Jonalyn?
None, sir.
Okay. Chris Bert, Christine, Aljanina, and Sheena. Do you guys have
Wala po,
any
sir.
questions?
Sir, wala po,
Wala
sir.
po.
Wala po.
Okay. So I hope you guys understand how I am able to come up with an introduction. But again, this is not going to stop us right here. I have more samples for you so that you can easily use different approaches to writing tasks like this. So let me move on. Take a look at this. Here is another task. Okay. So here is your task description. I'm going to box it in blue color. So you have the, I'm reading this to you, okay? The graph below shows the consumption of fish and different kinds of meat in a European country between 1979 and 2004. That is your first line of the task description. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant, and then write at least 150 words. So first of all, what are the words that we're going to avoid here? The word the graph. Aljay and Nina, what words do you think I can replace the graph with? Can you guys give me some words that I can replace the graph with?
Sir, illustration.
Illustration, that's nice. What about you, Jao? Should I still include, okay, the word below in my introduction?
No, sir.
That's correct.
Hindi na, sir.
What about the word shows? Okay. What about the word shows? Jonalyn, can you give me some words that I can replace the word shows with?
Gives data or gives information.
That's good. Okay. Now, when it comes to the who element, all right? Emil, tell me about the who element in my task description right here. I'm going to list them down.
The consumption of fish, sir.
Yes, fish.
And
What else?
different kinds of meat.
Okay, what are those different kinds of meat?
The chicken, beef, lamb,
Chicken,
and fish.
beef, lamb. Okay. Now, many students are actually asking me questions. When do I enumerate fish, chicken, beef, or lamb? Or where do I say just fish and various kinds of meat? So hear me out. If my who element is only 3 to 4, then I would say fish, chicken, beef, lamb. I can go on with that. But if it is going to exceed 5, like 5, 6, 7, let's say chicken, beef, lamb, fish, prawns, what else? Different, more meat, like dairy products. So you see the idea. If there is more than 3, there's more than 4, then I will not enumerate it. I will just be saying various types of meat. So in this occasion, probably I would not say fish, chicken, beef, or lamb. Rather, I will come up with another version. So later you will see how I'm going to come up with this. All right, let us ask Christine Mercado. We answered the who element. Can you answer the where element? Where did the study happen?
Oh, wait, sir. In European country.
All right. This study occurred in a European country. And lastly, Sheena. Sheena, tell me about the when element of my task.
Sir, between 1979 and 2004.
Correct. Between 1979 and 2004. Sir, I'm having problem. If I say between 1979 and 2004, examiners would notice that it's repetition. So what is another version that I can translate 1979-2004? Okay. Let us ask Chris Bert. Chris Bert, How can I say between 1979 and 2004 without repeating between 1979 and 2004? Okay, so probably I'll be answering for Chris Burke. I'll be using the term
Sir, pwede ba yung from and to?
from. That is correct, Nina. You will be using from 1979 to 2004. You know what the problem is? Many people use from 1979 and 2004. That's wrong. Some would say between 1979 and 2004. That's also incorrect. Because the thing is, from and to, they are made for each other. Okay, they're meant to be. Between and they're meant to be. So you cannot use from and together. You cannot use between and to together. Dahil ano man pong pinagsama ng Diyos, hindi maaaring paghiwalay ni naman. Okay? So, that is the proper way of doing. Ang tawag natin dyan, okay, ay correlative conjunction. Ang from ay kapartner si to. Ang between, ang kasama niya si and. Alright. Jao, can you tell me if I am missing something from the list of my variables? Jao. Jao, am I missing something from the list of the variables that I already have right here? Okay.
Yes, sir. Wait lang po.
Sige. You see it now, Jao? Okay. So, Jao, let me help you. Here.
Sir, wala naman na po.
The
Okay
grams
naman
per
na
person
yung
per
mga
week.
variables. Para makapag-create ng
This one, Jao.
instruction.
The grams per person per week is what's missing. This one. This is another important factor that I will include in my presentation. The grams per person per week. So I should say
Yes,
that
sir.
the graph presents the consumption of the fish and different kinds of meat, but who consumes them? It's the person. And how is the consumption being measured? It's measured using grams. And when it comes to 1979 to 2004, we're not just only going to include from 1979 to 2004, but we're talking about the consumption from 1979 to 2004 on a weekly basis. That's why I want everyone to see, okay, my sample introduction for this. All right, so here it is. The presentation illustrates the comparison of meat and fish consumption in a country in Europe over a 25-year period from 1979 to 2004. The figures are compared by grams for each person on a weekly basis. Okay. Now, meat, this is something that I would like to add. Meat is considered both singular and plural. So for this to become, okay, for this to become plural, I will add another. Since various has already been used, I will use different types of meat and fish consumption in a country in Europe, okay? Because I cannot use the word European country anymore. So it's okay if you're going to use in repetitively here, the fish consumption in a country in Europe over the 25-year period from 1979 to 2004. The figures are compared by grams for each person on a weekly basis. So this is my sample introduction for this type of task. Now, another sample. Okay, wait, samples will be provided later, more samples, don't worry. So I would like to ask a question to everyone. Do you guys have a clear understanding of the introduction, on how we come up with an introduction?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to proceed now on the general overview. In general overview, this is what you have to present. You have to present the general trend. So when it comes to general trend, your generalization prowess will be put to test here. Okay, so let us see how this general trend. So first of all, you have to determine the general movement of the lines. Okay, take a look. You have to determine the general movement of the lines. If the direction of the line goes here, goes up, then the words that you can use as your verb are here. So you have rose to, increased to, went up to, climbed to. All right, so there's a difference between ending this with to and ending this with by. Okay, let me give you a clear definition. The difference, let's say, let me go back here. Let me go back to my previous slide. All right. So when you say increase to, all right, versus increase by. So increase to is the new figure. So I'm going to use my spotlight right here. I will be using chicken. Okay, take a look at this. Chicken consumption began at this point. Okay, chicken consumption began at this point. All right, less than 150 grams. And then by the end of the study, it reached almost 250 grams. When I say it reached 2, then I will be emphasizing 250 because that is the new figure, increase 2. Okay? But when I say increase by, repeat that, by. By is the difference between the original figure and the current number. So if it is previously less than 150 and it is now about 250, we are seeing 100 grams of increase. So instead of saying increase 2, you will say chicken consumption increased by 100 grams. Because if you subtract 250 with 150, you will get the difference of 100. So when you use 2, that means you're referring to the new figure. When you use by, you are using the difference between the original figure and the new figure. So you're going to subtract them. So 2 new figure by difference between 2 figures. Okay, that's why I highlighted this idea. Again, if the direction is going up, here are the words that you can use. You have rose to, you have increased to, you have went up to, you have climbed to. Sir, what if I am going to use a noun? You mentioned that variation of sentence structure is also important in doing a task like this. So you can use the word a rise of 100 grams can be observed in chicken consumption as it began with less than 150 grams in 1979 and ended with around 250 grams by 2004. So you can use this phrase as well. Now, the question here, what if, what if the direction is going down? What if the direction is going down? Then you can use the words, fell to. You can use the words declined to. You can use the word decreased, dipped, dropped, went down, reduced. But you can also use by in replacement of to. The similar situation would also be applied. Okay, so fell by, it means, let's say from 20 and it is now 15, it fell by 5% because 20 and 15 has a difference of 5. So that is what I'm going to use. So again, if you want to use a variation of your sentence structure, then you can use the word a decrease of 50 grams can be observed for the past 20 years in chicken consumption. So that is how you can use the following terms, phrases. Any questions when it comes to the movement of the line? Okay, no one's asking question. So what about, sir, if there is no change? Okay, what about if there's no change? Like the line is like this, it's remaining as is. So you can use the words leveled out. You can use the word did not change, remained stable, remained steady, stayed constant, maintained the same level. And you know what my favorite is? For example, all right, this is the, okay, for example, this is the trend for beef consumption. Example, this is the trend for beef consumption. Okay, so what is my favorite term to use? There were no significant changes noted, or you can change the word noted into observe. In beef consumption for the past 25 years. Or let me put this into perspective. On our sample, it's not beef that remained unchanged. It's actually fish. So there were no significant changes noted in fish consumption for the past 25 years. For the past 25 years. So I can use this because it's much longer. So if the movement, actually, we don't call it as movement. If the line remains as is, if it remains stable, then this is the phrase that you can use, or you can choose between some of my words right here. Okay, like leveled out, like fish consumption stayed constant throughout the period. Fish consumption maintained the same level from 1979 until 2004. A leveling out was observed in fish consumption and remained unchanged until the end of the study year. It sounds academic, right? So that is how you're going to use these terms. So, sir, what about if this is the type of the line that we will see? Okay, take a look at this. This is the type of line that we will see. So there is a line here, and there's a line here, but there is a very sharp upward movement, and then there is then a low decline, and then it remains stable, and then it went up again, and then it went drastically down. So this is what we call an erratic trend. So the main keyword that you should remember is fluctuation. Okay, fluctuation. It moves from one particular area into another drastically. All right. So when do I use the word peak? Okay, I want to highlight the importance of this. Peak at. When you say peaked or reached a peak, okay, so those words, it means it reached the highest position in the line. So let's say here is your line graph. Okay, here is your line graph. So in this one, you have 100. Okay, in this area you have 100, and then in this area you have 0. So we will talk about the changes of the line, and then we shall say that the spending of Kevin in video games. Okay, so it went here, and then it fell here, and then it remained here. So this is, let's say, 1990, oh, sorry, 2015. Okay, so in this part, 2015, this is the part where Kevin spent the most, $100, okay, in video games. So this right here is what I'm going to refer to as peak. This right here is what I'm going to refer to as peak. So I can say that Kevin's expenditure for video games peaked in 2015. That's it. That's how you classify. All right. So what about plateau? Plateau is a low point. So let's say if my line does not just stop here, take a look at this. If my line does not just stop here, but it actually fell much lower, let's say right here, and then from 2016, it remained stable. So this right here is what we call a plateau. But again, I don't want you to use the word plateau, especially if you cannot spell the word properly. Take a look how difficult plateau is. Take a look how difficult to spell the word plateau. So if you're going to have a problem with spelling, then trust me, you would not want to use a much more complicated word than plateau. So I will not be encouraging everyone to use that word, especially if you cannot spell the words properly. All right, so those are some of the words that we use to classify the general trend. So what are other words? I mean, I know many examiners are already fed up with the words increase or decrease. So here are some of the lists of words that you can use, okay, for this one. So you can use soar, skyrocketed, leap, climb, surge. But of course, they already have their own past form. Soar is soared, skyrocket, skyrocketed, leap, leapt, climb, climbed, surged. So if I am pertaining to very large increases, then I will use soar, I will use skyrocket, I will use those words. Let's say from 10 to 190. Let's say from 1995, there were only 10 students enrolled in the University of New South Wales taking the economics course, but it soared to 190 after 2 years. It skyrocketed. It means it boomed. It means it increased hugely. It increased largely in a very short amount of time. That is when we use the word soar and skyrocket correctly. All right. Leap, fairly small increase. I can probably consider using the word leap for an increase of 40. Let's say from 20 it became 60. Climb, relatively neutral. From 20 it became 35. Surge, I will consider surge as one of the standard words. Well, let's say if I began at 20 and it became 65, then I will be using surge. So soar and skyrocket, those words are in different league. It means it increased shortly, it increased greatly in a very short amount of time. Surge means it increased fairly. Leap and climb, it increased. Okay, so those are some of the words that I use in replacement of the words up, in replacement of the words went up, because went up, that's too technical. All right, so up verbs. Okay, now let's talk about the down verbs. All right, what are the words that I use to that I use for my presentation for down verbs? Okay, so I have plunge and plummet. Those are my strongest words. So when it goes down hard, when it falls for a very long, in a very short period of time, I will be using plunge and plummet. Well, fairly short amount of decrease, well, then I would consider dip and drop. But slip back is something that I would like everyone to consider with precaution. So let me show you a sample of when I can use the word slip and fall back. All right, so I will draw first some grids right here. Bear with me, konti na lang to guys, okay? Baka nagugutom na kayo. All right, I want you guys to focus here. So let me just divide this into graphs. So when I say slip and fall back, this is what I mean, okay? So I'm sorry if my lines are not very straight. So I'm going to write a text right here. So let's say 95, and then 96, 97, 98, and lastly, I have 99. Those are the years, by the way. And then I also have some text below. All right, so I'll be having 100, and then 75, and then 25, and then 0. Okay. Okay, so these are my figures for the bar. Okay, so when I say slip or fall back, let's say I began with 25 in 1995, and then it increased. Let me change the color so that you can see it clearly. I'm going to use a fat line. So I went to here, it reached 75, then it slipped back. It means it returned. So it returned to its original figure after 2 years. So it began in 25, began with 25 in the year 1995, it increased to 75 for the year 1996, and then it returned. So I'm going to use slip back, it fell back, okay? So that is the occasion in which you can use the words slip back and fall back. We use it with precautions, okay? So those are some of the noun verbs that you can use in your presentation. So again, here's my sample. Overall, chicken consumption experienced an increasing trend, while beef and lamb diminished after 25 years. Meanwhile, fish inclusion did not notice any significant changes. So chicken consumption, obviously, let's have a look at this. So for chicken, what I see here is that it's the red in color. There's an increase. Of all the 4 meat included in my study, only chicken increased. And then for beef, it decreased together with lamb. That's why you can see in my first statement right here, chicken consumption experienced an increasing trend while beef and lamb diminished after 25 years. But fish, I also have to include this. As you can see, fish did not notice any significant change. It started somewhat a bit above 50, and then it remained below 50 until 2004. So it did not notice any significant change. Unlike beef, which is very much erratic, unlike chicken, which is also zigzaggy. So that's the reason why I've come up with this particular example, all right, for my presentation. So overall, chicken consumption experienced an increasing trend, while beef and lamb diminished after 25 years. Meanwhile, fish inclusion did not notice any significant changes for a 25-year period. Since I've mentioned 25 years already, there's no need for me to repeat that information since it will be repetitive, okay? So this is my sample general overview. So you have to present to me the trend, what's the movement of the line. Okay, what about this? Take a look. Overall, the farm utilized the most fertilizer at seasons of low fruit production. By contrast, it produced the most fruit when fertilizer use was around the lowest. Okay, now it is a very important thing to understand when it comes to line graph. Okay, line graphs trend, you can determine this by first taking a look at the beginning. What is the highest and lowest point, and when did it end? All right. So you can mention that for fruit production, this is the blue line, fruit production. the farm utilized the most fertilizer of seasons, okay, in low fruit production. Take a look. Here is a month of low fruit production. Here is another month of low fruit production. When did the farm utilize the most fertilizer? In the season of low fruit production. And then let's show the contrast. Take a look. In this particular idea, this is the peak, right? This is the peak. But starting here, they did not use any more fertilizer, increasing by 0.5 tons. Whereas, if you take a look closely, the pattern is opposite for this. So they have an opposite trend. So take a look at the movement of the lines, okay, so that you can make comparisons, and you can make comparisons relevant to the lines and also to the comparison between the data sets. So let's practice, okay? Guys, I'm going to give you 2 minutes for this, okay? I'm giving you 2 minutes for this. I'll be asking questions to my students. I'll be asking questions to you guys. What general overview are you going to come up with this? Okay, so I want everyone to present a general overview to me after 2 minutes. Good luck. Okay, everyone, I want to hear your overview. Let's first begin with Sheena. Sheena, let me hear it. Okay, what about you, Emil? Emil, let me hear, Sheena. Okay, now you're unmuted, Sheena. Let me hear your overview.
Sir,
Sir,
wait lang.
pwede next.
Sir, wait lang po.
Okay. All right, so probably you guys are having problems. So here's what we're going to do. Let's just help each other, okay? So help me out on this. We are going to come up with a legitimate general overview. Let me just put a text box right here. So of course, we will begin with the word overall. You can never go wrong with that. So let me just change my color. So overall, and don't ever forget the freaking comma. So overall, what have we noticed? Okay, that more people, take a look at that, more people watch television. Can I safely say that more people watch television, Sheena?
Yes, sir.
Yes, more people watch television. In the UK, of course. What about you, Emil? Okay, can I say that more people listen to the radio in the morning, while it is true that more people watch TV at night? Can I say that, Emil?
Sir, sir, ano po ulit?
Okay, so let me repeat, Emil. Emil, can I say that more people listen to the radio in the morning and more people watch TV during the night?
Yes, sir.
Yes, because I'm going to box it. All right. This is the morning, while this is the nighttime. Okay, and we can clearly say that more people listened to the radio in the morning because it is much higher here as compared to TV audience. And on the other hand, starting from this point on, at 12 noon, the trend was reversed. Okay, so again, let me repeat the overview. I'm going to insert another text right here. So overall, more people watched television in the UK, or more people in the UK, rather, more people in the UK watch television rather than listened to the radio. It is also clear that the former activity happened at night, while the latter occurred Okay, overall, more people in the UK watch television rather than listen to the radio. It is also clear that the former activity, okay, recorded significant number or significant share of audience. It is also clear that the former activity, when you say former, watch television, recorded a significant share of audience at night, while the latter, which is listening to the radio, the former activity recorded a significant share of audience at night, while the latter happened in the morning. That's it. Overall, more people in the UK watch television rather than listen to the radio. It is also clear that the former activity, which is what I mentioned first, watching TV, recorded significant share of audience at night, while the latter happened in the morning, or recording significant share of audience for the latter, which is radio, happened in the morning. Again, don't forget the period, because period is an important part of your grammar. So that is how you make a general overview. Okay, you put all the important points. Okay, now let's just clear my drawings and let's move on to the next slide. Okay, round two. Again, I want you guys to help me out on this. So what happened? So overall, definitely we cannot live with a general overview without that word overall. You cannot just use any other term. You can just use that term. Okay. What are the important points that I should include? Christine Mercado.
The highest and the lowest, sir.
Correct. The highest and the lowest. Unfortunately, we have two highest and lowest here. So the first highest and lowest belong to the number of passengers from 6 to 10. And we also have another, which is the average price per ticket. So we also have to make sure to put comparisons. So first of all, let us take a look at the numbers right here. So what are the highest figures? I have the 690 at 8 in the morning. I have the 700 at 12 noon. And then we have the 6 p.m. increase. Now, if you take a look closely, the pattern for your increase in number of passengers together with the increase of average dollar price per ticket are the same, okay? Because there's a peak of average price per ticket at 8 in the morning. There's also another peak, which was the most expensive ticket price. It belonged to 12 noon, but this is something that I want you guys to put as an expression, all right? This is something that I want you guys to highlight. 11. That is the cheapest ticket price. Even though 6 p.m., there is a surge in passenger number, but it is accompanied by the cheapest price of ticket. And that is what I want to make as my overview. Okay? So let me write this into text. So overall, obviously we cannot use any other. Overall, the number of passengers peaked 3 times during the day. One in the morning, another at noon, and lastly at in the afternoon, late in the afternoon. The ticket price also partially follow this pattern, except for the 6 p.m. price, which was the cheapest. Again, you don't have to copy everything. You don't have to take screenshots because I just want you guys to see how we will be able to come up with an impression of this. So first, the number of passengers peaked 3 times during the day. And I enumerated that. One in the morning, another at noon, and lastly late in the afternoon. And then look at this, the ticket price also partially. So take a look at the word partially. It means it's not totally, all right? So the ticket price also partially follow this pattern, except there is an exception. Spelling, all right, except for the 6 p.m. price, which was the cheapest. So you put a comma here and you put a period here. Again, punctuation usage, it is very important. Now, another thing that I would like everyone to understand when it comes to general overview. Again, this is a very essential part of your task. We also need to mention the speed of change, and you will be discussing that most often in the body. So we discussed the speed of change. How quick, how slow were they moving? So if they are, if you're going to use a noun, then these are the words that you can use they are part of your adjectives. And then if we are using adjectives or verbs and also adverbs, then you can use the words rapidly, then you can use the words quickly, swiftly, suddenly, steadily, gradually, and even slowly. So there's a difference between the two. Adjectives, you can only account this for a noun or pronoun, whereas adverbs, you can only use this for verbs or adjectives or a fellow adverb. So we have to make sure that in dealing with using the speed of change in terms of description, because there are modifiers, tons of modifiers actually, we have to make them right. Okay. And in my Grammar 5 replay lecture, I have posted that on our Facebook group last week. If you're not really particular with understanding how adjectives and how adverbs work, then it is essential that you review that lecture, because in line graphs, you will be dealing with the discussion of the speed of change. And it is imperative that for candidates like you, you understand where and when do you use adjectives and adverbs accordingly. So these are just some of the words. So if you're pertaining to the speed, mabilis, rapid, quick, swift. A rapid increase was observed. A quick decline was noted. A swift retrogression occurred. A sudden, all right? What if it is occurring steadily? It's not changing, it's not increasing very drastically. So steady and gradual would be the words that you can use. If it is not moving enough for your own pace, then you can use the word slow, all right? A slow decline was observed. A slow reduction of the figures was relevant. So you can use the word rapid, quick, swift, sudden for speed. You can use steady and gradual if it's not moving too sharp. It's just doing like this. But if it's really very slow, then you can use the word slow. Again, if you are pertaining to adverbs, then here are the words. Okay, they can be used the same. Their meaning are the same, but you can only account adverbs for an adjective: rapidly increasing, quickly declining, swiftly dropped, suddenly fell, steadily inclined, gradually reduced, slowly increasing. So that's how you can use adverbs for the discussion of the speed of change. Now, what about up verbs? Okay, I've mentioned the words. You can use these also, not only in the conclusion, not only in the general overview, but also in the body. And also the same as with these down verbs. Degrees of approximation. Sometimes, take a look at this. I'm going to refer to my previous slide. Sometimes we will not be able to see the correct, like if you can see this. Is this really 30%? No. Is it what, 27, 28? No, I can't make up my mind what percentage are we going to use this, or what numbers are we going to use for this type of trend. So what you can do instead is to use a degree of approximation. And these are the words that you can use for degrees of approximation. You can use the words just under, let's say just under $25, well under 50%. You can also use the words roughly, approximately. You know what? Approximately is something that I should warn you about, because look at that spelling. What if you can't spell approximately correctly? So if you can't spell approximately correctly, use just under, well under. If it is over, then of course, be my own guest. Just over 20%, well over 35 million, just under 25,000. So you can use the following, all right? About 30, nearly 20%, around 2 tons. So you can use those words to pertain to the degrees of approximation, so that you can never go wrong with your presentation. So it does sound more accurate. Now, 1 line equals 1 paragraph. So if I see a line that pertains to the weight of fruit produced, the blue one, okay, if I see this line, then I would most definitely use one line for this paragraph and then another line for this paragraph. So how many paragraphs in the body? I will be using 2. So one paragraph for the weight of fruit, one paragraph for the amount of fertilizer. So what about if I see 4 lines? Does that mean, sir, I see 3 lines? So that will be introduction, that will be general overview. I will use my first paragraph for the first line, second paragraph for the second line, third paragraph for the third line. It makes it 5. Now, what if there are 4 lines, like the chicken, beef, lamb, and fish? Then should I use intro and then general overview, then another paragraph, 2, 3, 4 for each chicken, beef, lamb, and fish? No, because then you will be using 6 paragraphs. You should not exceed 6 paragraphs, okay? So what I'm going to do here, if I'm going to see 4 lines, then I will be using 2 lines, let's say chicken and then fish together, and then, or I could possibly use lamb and the other beef sharing the same paragraph, okay? Sir, what about if I see 5 lines? How will I divide my paragraphing properly? Okay, again, how many paragraphs for the body? I can use the word, or I can use chicken and then beef first, and then lamb, fish together. Okay, so that will be a total of 2 paragraphs. What about this? So I have like 6 lines. Guys, take a look at this. 6 lines. Now, I want to ask you guys this question. How many paragraphs in the body am I going to use for this? How many paragraphs in the body? Sheena, do you have an idea?
Sa body po, sir.
Yes, how many paragraphs?
3 po.
3. It's actually a very nice guess. What are you going to put in the same paragraph, Emil, for this type of task? Okay, Emil, can I put petrol and oil, coal, and natural gas together in one paragraph?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about nuclear, solar, wind, hydropower in the same paragraph? Can I also use that?
Yes po.
Okay. Well, you see, petrol and oil together with coal and natural gas, they have the same trend. They have the slightly increasing trend. So I can put them together in one paragraph. And you see that nuclear, solar, wind, hydropower from 1980 until 2030, we see a slight increase. They're following the same trend. They're following the same path. So I could basically use the same paragraph for all those 3. So I can use 2. Sir, what about if there's no petrol? So I can use, let's say, what about if there's no natural gas, for instance? I would be dedicating 1 paragraph for petrol. I'll be dedicating 1 paragraph for coal. Then I will be using 1 paragraph for nuclear, solar, wind, and hydropower. That makes it 3. So you do not use 4 paragraphs in the body for a line graph. Only 4, minimum, maximum of 5. Okay? So I hope everyone is clear on that. Now, sir, I am seeing future. Take a look at this. We see a future here. All right, so we have we're in the year 2021. So starting at 2022 until 2030, it's still future, right? So we cannot use the past tense of the verb. We cannot use the present tense, obviously. So we will be using the future, but we do not use the simple future tense as is. We do not just use any other phrase easily. What we do here, okay, is that we use this particular sentence, okay? it is expected that it is expected that by the year, how much, or by the year future? For instance, let me go back on my previous slide. Again, let me go back on my previous slide. It is expected that by the year, okay, take a look. It is expected that by the year, let me use my red color here. It is expected that by the year 2025, these three ones, coal, natural gas, and petrol oil would increase. So let's talk first about petrol and oil. From 2020, it is 40. Okay, I'm using this line. So it is about 40, more than 40. And then on this line, 2025, this is more than 45. Are you guys seeing this? Okay. So what I can use as a sentence is going to be something like this. It is expected that by the year 2025, all right, petrol and oil consumed fuel in the US would increase by about 10%, by about 5%. Again, when I say about, it's because 42 to 47, because I'm trying to make some comparison here. 42 to 47, this one, and this one, I'm trying to make some comparison. It's 5%, but I can't make up my mind whether it's actually 5, is it 4.7, is it 4, or is it 6? So I'm using my degrees of approximation, exactly what I taught you. My degrees of approximation, those are the approximately, the just under, well under, roughly, about, just over, well over, nearly, and around. So those are some of the words that you can use for this particular. Now, you do not just use, it is expected that. Like, what if Sheena used that? What if Emil used the same? What if Christine? What if Jonalyn? What if Jao also utilize the same word? You cannot just repeat the same word, but I have a present for you. You can use other words besides expected. It is expected that, okay, you insert the future year, and then the variable X, let's say chicken consumption, or fertilizer use, or t-shirt purchased would increase by how much? Sir, what about if it is the other way? If it's not going to increase, what about if it's going to decrease? Then you should use the word would decrease, would decline, would fell. But when it comes to the word expected, you can use other terminologies. You can use the words anticipated, you can use the word expected, you can use the word forecasted, you can use the word foreseen, you can use the word estimated. It is expected that by the year 2030, more people would purchase t-shirts by around 10% more on the beginning of the study. So that's it. Okay, so you can use the following terms for the future use. Okay, now let us wrap things up. I'm going to show you the samples. I'm going to read this to you. Okay, so in 1979, beef accounted for the most consumed form of meat at over 200 grams eaten per individual. Over the next quarter of a century, which is 25 years, obviously, although it rose in mid-80s, there was a downward trend in its consumption, dropping more significantly than other meat options to just above 100 grams in 2004. Lamb also experienced a general, if irregular, drop in consumption from 150 grams to about a third of that figure by 2004. Now take a look at chicken. Although chicken started at the same level as lamb, at 100 grams, This option equaled beef's weekly consumption in 1989 at 200 grams, also ended up as the most consumed product at 250 grams by 2004. On the other hand, fish was the least consumed of the meat selections, starting at slightly more than a third of beef and chicken's 150 grams. It remained relatively stable throughout the study, finishing below 50 grams. Now, sir, I have a question. If you will be having an introduction, a general overview, in 1979 paragraph, although chicken paragraph, and on the other hand paragraph, that makes it 5 paragraphs. Bakit hindi nyo po sinunod yung sinabi nyo mismo, sir, na how many lines equals 1 paragraph? Guys, take a look. This is a different case. I want everyone to understand bakit ganito yung paragraphing ko. Tinan mo yung trend ng beef at saka ng lamb. They're both decreasing. That is the reason why I have put the paragraph. I want them to share the same paragraph. Now, the chicken paragraph is separate because it's another trend. It is an increasing pattern. And the fish one remained the same, remained stable, remained stagnant from 1989 or 1979 until 2004. That's why I separated it. So depending on what I saw, depending on what you think would be ideal. So what I think would be ideal presentation here is that beef and lamb would share the same paragraph. Fish would be the same paragraph. Sorry, beef would be a separate paragraph, and then chicken would also have one separate paragraph for its presentation. That's why I have come up with 3 equal parts of my presentation using 3 paragraphs in the body, but still I'm not exceeding the 5 paragraphs maximum. Now I have another, but this one I will be presenting first the weight of fruit in detail. Fruit production rose steadily from just over 2 tons in January. So let me use my annotation right here. I'll be using my annotation. Wait a minute. Okay, so fruit production rose steadily. Again, fruit production rose steadily from just over 2 tons in January. Again, just over 2 tons in January. That's right here. And then to a peak of roughly 4.2 tons by August. Then this is where it peaked. So if this is the starting figure, and then this is the peak figure, again, this is important, output then fell rapidly. Is it okay if I'm going to use the word rapidly? Yes, because look at how fast the decline was. From 4 tons, it returned to its initial figure of 2 tons. That's why I used the word the initial 2-ton mark in December. Now, let's take a look at the on the other hand portion of my discussion. Okay. Now, as you can see here, with regard to fertilizer use, I use on the other hand because obviously I'm going to refer to the other part of my line. This seasonal pattern is largely reversed. This is a very important trend. This seasonal pattern is largely reversed. I'm going to continue reading. The most fertilizer, which is just less than 1 ton. Again, where was that? Less than 1 ton, the most fertilizer, less than 1 ton was utilized in April. Here it is, the most fertilizer used under 1 ton. And then a marked decline to 0 in June, July. June, July don't have any fertilizer use anymore. And then it increased to about 0.7 in August. Okay, it reached to, fertilizer consumption then increased slightly in August. Again, it increases slightly right here, and then rising to a total of around 0.7 tons, which is about right here, November, before dipping to just 0.5 tons at year end. So that is the change. It increased here in April. This is the most fertilizer used. It fell drastically. There was no record for June, July. It reached 0. Then it increased to slightly in August. And then it reached another peak by November. Then it fell to 0.5 ton by December. That is how you present the body of your task. What about this? Okay, the average number of passengers at 6 a.m. is 480. So we will begin with that. The average number of passenger, okay, is at 6 a.m. is 480, rising to 690 by 8 a.m. before falling again. Okay, it fell again, right? But there's then a rise by midday. Midday, we refer to it as noon, reaching 700. This is the this is the highest volume of passenger at 12 noon, followed by an afternoon decline to a low of 230 at 4. A third spike can be seen at 6 p.m., by which the figure climbs to 670 before tailing off. Now, let us talk about the ticket price. So we have to also make sure that when we discuss ticket price, we will be highlighting the exception, which was the nighttime, okay? The ticket prices partially follow this pattern. The 8 a.m. passenger surge is matched by a high price of $29, followed by a peak of $31 at midday, which was the 12 noon figure. Now, there is a decline to just over $17 at 4 o'clock. Now, the 6 p.m. spike in passenger numbers is accompanied only by a low of $11 in prices. You can also highlight that this is the cheapest price of ticket, with a subsequent rise to $22 at 8 p.m. and a final leveling off. When I say leveling off, it remained the same. It did not notice any drastic change whatsoever. So that is the sample for this type of task. Now, forum, that is the end, obviously, of our discussion. Now, if you guys are thinking, oh, is it a bit too fast when it comes to the body? You can identify, you can study the sample line graphs I have. I will be sharing all of these samples in my Facebook group post. I will be posting it as a text. I'll be posting the task description in the comment section. I will be posting the photo of the task itself, so that you can actually identify where the discussion of the increase, the decrease, it fell to, and how the sentences were constructed. So now that will be the end of my discussion for today, okay, for our line graph. Before I proceed to cutting the recording, do you guys have any questions or concerns? Sheena, Emil, Christine, Jonalyn, Zhao, do you have any questions?
Answer.
All right. So you don't have any question. Emil, what about you, Christine?
Wala po, sir. Okay na po.
What about you, Jonalyn?
None, sir.
Okay, what about you, Sheena?
None po, sir. Antayin ko na lang
Alright,
po yung
Jao?
calls.
Sir, wala naman po. Mas na-clarify na lahat.
Okay. What did you say, Sheena, pala last time? The last part of what you're trying to say?
Sir, antayin ko na lang po yung mga samples.
Okay, those samples, okay, so that you can understand them, I'll be posting them on my Facebook group today, those samples and the ones that I have. So I wish everyone good luck. Have a nice day. God bless you guys. Tomorrow, we still have another major lecture at 9 a.m. in the morning, so you have to be early. See you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.